Roman with AXIOM, here with Katharine Halpin today. Katharine, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, and I just feel like it's such a privilege, Armando, to be with you. So thank you so much for this great opportunity.
Oh, I'm excited for our conversation, Katharine, because we work with businesses who are in transition or thinking about their next step and maybe succession to the kids or to an
Mhm.
employee team and that. And you've got all these skills with people and communication that are so critical in any kind of a transition or growth stage that I'm excited to just talk with you a bit and help people understand how you can really help them
Yeah,
when they're going through some of those changes, or maybe they want to grow because they haven't had any changes and they need somebody
right.
to come in from the outside and just help them. So if you can just introduce yourself and then
Sure.
we'll have a conversation.
Okay. Well, I'm Katharine Halpin, and I grew up in Mississippi, and I went to work in my dad's CPA firm at an early age. And so I became a CPA, and I could see all these people issues. I was a people issue because I wasn't in a role that was in alignment with my strengths. And I could see other key people around the CPA firm or the oil and gas company, whatever I worked. And I said to myself, somebody's got to address these people issues. So in 1995, I discovered coaching and I became a coach and I got certified. But within a year, I was facilitating processes because this is a process. We don't want to just coach one random executive. They don't know what they don't know. I had to hear about the challenge from everybody to get to the root issue and then help design a process. And I don't mean I have like a 36-month change management process. No, I'm talking about a 2-week process, a 90-day process. Let's see how far we can get in that, and then we'll reassess and see if you want to buy some more of my services. So that's about me, and I love it. It doesn't feel like work. I feel like I haven't worked a day in 27 years. I
Well,
just love it.
that's probably what part of why you're so good at what you do.
I
And
just
I
love it.
can see how your friendly, outgoing personality will help engage people at all levels in the company and really have that outcome for the business. So I do want to describe a situation that I had
Yes.
just recently, and I think it might be a good way to have you help people understand how you can help.
Mhm.
So the question I got from a business owner about 3 weeks ago was they've had this company now for almost 30 years. And it's at a certain point where it's producing, it's profitable, and
Predictable.
yeah, life is good, but they feel like they've hit a plateau. And because
Mhm.
of the changing marketplace, because of competition coming in, they're really feeling like they have to make some kind of a change. Either they have to
Mhm.
sell the business as is, or make some changes, grow the company a bit, and then maybe sell it in, say, 24 months.
Right.
So that was what they were thinking. And I suppose if you think about that picture and that business, how might you come in and how might you
Oh,
help them figure that out?
well, I could help them grow their shareholder value. Say it's a $10 million company. If they gave me that 24 months, I could help them easily get to 20 or 30 million in value. So their equity is worth so much more. And how I would do that is I would assess the current management team and owners to identify what their strengths are and to identify what gaps are missing. Um, and once we fill those gaps with people that are going to fit in with that culture and those values and those beliefs that the current leaders have, so that selection process is quite tricky. I prefer to promote from within, to find somebody who's a high performer down in the company and promote them up into a management role. Because if they've been working there for 10 or 15 years, we know what their values are. They're living and breathing the values.
Right.
So first of all, I would assess everybody's strengths and see where's their commonalities, where's they're not, where are the gaps. And especially with that founder, that would be the first person whose strengths I would want to assess, because now we know what the benchmark is. He or she is the one that built this company in the first place, and somebody's got to be able to replicate that. Rarely will be one person. Most likely it would be a whole management team, because everybody's going to have different strengths. Nobody's going to be his clone. So that'd be the first step. And then I would assess the rest of the owner's family, if they're involved, and then the management team. And then I would work to start building alignment in their mission and purpose of the company. Make sure that there are no outliers, people, consistently going off the message or going off the strategic plan, thinking that they know better. And so it helped them build alignment and build clarity, build focus. So everybody knew, everybody in the company needs to know why their role is so critical, and how they're going to be measured for success. And we want to run 1,000 experiments in that first 90 days. We want to give everybody from the founder all the way down special projects, I call them. You know, everybody's got special projects, right? We want to give everybody a bunch of special projects and just see who steps up and who takes the initiative and the ownership. And that's how we identify that core team that's going to grow the company. It may not require the family of the owner to be involved. They could, you know, come in once a month or once every 2 weeks and just look at the metrics and the financials and get briefed. They don't have to be the people to grow that company.
And are the special projects kind of a weeding out process?
Exactly. The people that don't meet their expectations, well, they've demonstrated they're not eligible to be on this team. And most often they know that themselves before we ever put them, you know, give them the special projects. So often they'll self-select out. I had a client recently. I brought a colleague in that could do some statistical analysis on productivity. And this gal was so low. She was like off the bottom of the chart. She was so low in her productivity. And so I worked with the management team. It's 2 layers. To put her on what I call the step up or step out program. She did step up and increased her productivity the very next week by 400%.
Wow.
But then the next week she had a wonderful job opportunity in Toledo, Ohio. So she knew when they brought the consultants in that you know, she was on the bubble. She knew she was, you know, producing about 25% of what everybody else was producing. And so she had probably started looking for a job at that time. We don't know for sure, but what the timing was, but we know she self-selected out and she left with her dignity intact, her head held high. It was her choice. There were no performance improvement plans, no HR involvement, nothing to cause drama or trauma or delays. This can happen, you know, within 2 weeks with a professional and 2 days with a clerical person or like accounts payable clerk or a receptionist or administrative assistant. They can get the clarity and, you know, just from one conversation. Wow. And that conversation starts with their manager or their supervisor taking responsibility, going to them. So we you know, in that situation, the leader's name was Karen, and she went to that person and she said, you know, Betty Sue, I'm so sorry that you haven't been more successful in the last few years. I mean, the pandemic was hard on everybody, and I know it was hard on you, but I want to take full responsibility that I haven't been meeting with you and that I haven't been clarifying expectations and clarifying what, you know, the executives expect from us as far as productivity. And I want to take full responsibility for that. And I want to do whatever it takes to help you be successful, to really understand what success looks like in your role and help you be successful. And let's meet this afternoon. And so they met, and guess what? You know, Betty Sue's productivity goes up 400% almost overnight. But then within a few weeks, she self-selected out on week 2. So I've seen that with PhD scientists who have an MD and a PhD, and they have like a team of 15 or 20 people. They would have to relocate across the country if they were going to self-select out. I've seen them self-select out. I've seen CEO team members self-select out over the weekend. The CEO had conversation with them on a Friday afternoon, and by Monday morning they have a new job in Toledo, Ohio. And I've seen it with professionals about 2 weeks. I've seen this thousands of times. It works every time because you're not going into the manager's to the person's cubicle or office and saying, you idiot, what were you thinking? What, you know, how did you let your productivity fall so much? And how did you let this fester for a year or two? They're saying, gosh, Betty Sue, we know you haven't been successful. We want to help you be successful.
Yeah. So it sounds like your process is giving a nice area where they have that ability, as you said, with dignity and respect.
Yes.
Step out and go a different direction. And, you know, as I hear you describe that, when I hear the employee themselves resigning and taking in the job someplace else, my immediate thought is, great. There's not anything hanging out there on the employer for a potential employee
Well,
grievance
exactly.
or
No
something like that.
unemployment, no severance. See, when I was a CPA, they were always offering me severance packages. And in the 80s, I was going to write a book about how to build your wealth through severance packages. But so I'm very anti-severance. And then when I first started doing this work, I did it with random vice presidents in the Fortune 500. They were always giving big severance packages.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is ridiculous. Save that money, reinvest that in something more productive. We don't need to give people severance packages. So I have a bias against that. Yeah, and you want to do this way before you would ever consider getting HR involved, because once HR is involved, they have all kind of regulatory compliance issues that you have to give the person notice, has to be written, blah blah, blah, verbal, blah, have to sign. No, we don't do any of that. We just get the manager to meet with them more consistently. So if we just stay with that same situation with Karen and Betty Sue, if Betty Sue had not self-selected out, but she still got her productivity up 400% that first week within a few days, well, then Karen would have, kept meeting with her every 2 or 3 days, for a week or 10 days, just to make sure that, Betty Sue understood, she had the tools, she had the resources, that she could come clean about why her productivity had dropped so much, so that they could have more workability, give her what she needed, and help her sustain that level of productivity. Because the 400% increase, that was just the norm. That was what everybody else was doing. So we had to get her back to that, or get her. Mm-hmm.
And so, Catherine, I've heard you say before about communicating effectively and consistently.
Yes.
How does
yes.
that, can you just talk about what that really means in a company?
Well, my first big company, it was not a Fortune 500. I had 80 employees. They were about an $8 million company. The CFO brought me in because the founder was still bringing in 80% of the revenue. And so, but they had met somebody, an attorney, they'd gone to a workshop, and they had already gone down a path to sell their professional services firm to their employees.
Okay.
So they had identified 22 kind of junior partner people, and they were bonusing those people and then offering them the opportunity to invest back in the firm.
Okay.
So I said to the founder, well, Bob, how often do you meet with those 22 people? Well, I never meet with them. They're idiots. Why would I meet with them? I'm like, well, you're gifting them your firm, you better meet with them. So no, I was very soft. I never get in anybody's face. I say, well, that's one approach, but let's put our heads together and think about other approaches that might be more productive. So to put 11 of them on one Monday afternoon and the other 11 the following Monday afternoon. Well, you can't meet with 11 people one afternoon. And he was highly intuitive. And that's how he had built the firm to 8 million. He would take the prospective clients, former clients, current clients, all of them, to breakfast or lunch. And he would just use his intuition to ask them good questions. And then lo and behold, his firm could provide the solutions to whatever the problems that emerged. And so I said, if you just use that same approach, pretend these are your clients, not your employees, and use that same approach. Well, what happened was, so he kept it up every Monday, but needing to get to meet with everybody every Monday, but he was meeting with the key players. So 6 of those 22 people self-selected out within about 60 days. They went to work for their clients, or their spouse got a promotion across the country, or they decided they wanted to be closer to family. It was all legitimate reasons. They left with their dignity intact. And then over the next year, 2 of them came to him and said, one of them said, I've never been good in this leadership role. Could I be the senior technical guru in these 3 areas for the whole firm? Everybody in the firm could come through my office on those 3 issues. We were like, hallelujah, perfect. And then the other one said, I'm not a very good leader, but I was a great crackerjack project manager. Could I go backwards to take that project manager role? And we were like, of course. And so the remaining 14 people were younger, more technologically advanced. But through that interaction weekly with Bob, well, every other week, they would share with him their ideas. I've got an idea about, we've developed this software. I think we can commercialize this software for our whole industry. Or I got an idea about how we could build these widgets faster, better, smarter. And so they grew his firm from 8 million to 25 million before he retired.
So a question for you, did that flow of ideas, was that happening before you began working with them?
No, because he was never meeting with them. There was never any time.
Oh.
And worse than that, worse than him not meeting with them, he was meeting with their clients. So they were working on client projects, and he's going to lunch or breakfast with that client and not taking them. So he started taking them. So he was like the hero. He would ride in on a white horse and solve all the clients' problems, but it completely undermined his people. So of course there was no flow. They were not going to come to him with any ideas because they didn't feel safe with him.
Wow.
So he started taking them with him to the breakfast meeting and the lunch meeting with their clients, and he started meeting with them so that there was more of a relaxed exchange. And for the go-getters, those 14 remaining ones, they weren't waiting for their every other Monday. They were dropping by his office. They were saying, hey, I got an idea about this project. I want to run it by you. I've got an idea about this client. I've got an idea about a potential client. And when I first met him, I said, well, you can't be the managing partner on every client project. It's just not feasible. And at 8 million. And he said, okay, well, they were in the construction industry. He said, okay, if it's a $10 million construction project, then or above, I'll be the managing partner. If it's less, then I'll let somebody else be the managing partner. So I said, okay, that makes sense. Well, by the time we finished our work in a couple of years, that threshold of 10 million got to be 250 million.
Wow.
The size of their projects was so greater because these younger guys were out there selling now, not just what they weren't just relying on Bob. Isn't that a great story?
Oh, that is fantastic. So he really, it sounds like I want to say you taught him how to have a little more confidence and engage his people more.
Right.
The process enabled that to happen, and it sounds like everybody won, even the ones who self-selected out of it. They were probably better off as well.
Right. Of course, they've got a job that they could see that they were never going to be successful with this soft level of accountability. Even with that soft level, they knew they weren't going to meet expectations. And so they were going to go to work someplace where the expectations were a little bit looser.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a company that it sounds like it hit a plateau.
Yes.
You helped them get beyond that and experience some phenomenal growth.
Because Bob had taken it as far as he could take it. He was doing 5 breakfast meetings a week and 5 lunch meetings a week. There was no more time to take any more people to lunch or breakfast. So he had taken it as far as he could.
That's amazing.
Yeah, isn't that a great story?
Yeah, so in that 24 months then, the value of the company increased, it doubled or tripled.
Yeah, it tripled, a little bit more than tripled. And I worked with the CFO on her developing her person. She had one person. She had some accounting clerk people, but she had one professional. We got him trained, and I don't believe we have weaknesses, but I do know that we have. We get ourselves in trouble. Well, Bob got himself in trouble a lot by wanting to give away the store. He never wanted to charge properly, and so what we learned quickly was that the CFO, who had worked with him for 30 years. He was not the person to bring that up with Bob. Bob got triggered. He got defensive. He was like, had a million reasons why this is, why we have to give this guy a break on his construction project. But we found that the younger guy that was in transition to be trained to be the CFO, there's no history, there's no baggage. So he started going in there. And then they sort of, I think it kind of eased Bob out eventually of the fee setting process. But initially, it was the younger guy who didn't have any history with Bob who made it more safe and comfortable for Bob to use some new and different approaches. It's all about using new and different approaches. Right. And that's what I do for the leaders is I hold their hand and help them feel safe. And, Bob wasn't perfect. He's a human being. So sometimes he would undermine his people, 6 months, 12 months, 18 months into our process. And so I would just say to him, well, it's one approach, Bob. But is that approach going to get you where you want to go? Or is there a better approach next time? Mm-hmm. So I was never going to get in his face. I'm from Mississippi. I can't get in people's faces. I'm always going to be soft and gentle and gracious and kind.
So you had mentioned to me before about helping people take ownership.
Yes.
Helping people
Yes.
be accountable, be responsible.
Yes.
How do you, in an organization that maybe historically it just kind of grew into what it is, and there's some fixing that needs to happen, you're coming in to do that. How are you helping those folks understand their responsibility and take ownership of that? How do
It's
you?
critical. It's just critical. It's the only solution. We can't go into their cubicle or their office and say, you idiot, what were you thinking? Then they're going to clam up and they're going to retire in place. They're going to keep taking a paycheck for another 20, 25 years, but they're not going to produce. You're going to have alienated them so much. So what I do is I ask, so it could be, frontline supervisor, it could be an executive CEO. I just ask them, okay, so, Betty Sue has indicated that she's not going to, produce any higher, through her actions. So if you could magically rewind the clock to the day that Betty Sue came on this team, when you hired Betty Sue, even in the interview process before you hired her, if you could just magically rewind the clock, but yet retain the knowledge that you have about Betty Sue, what would you do different? Knowing what you know about her now, what would you have done different, 5 years ago, 15 years ago, when she first came on this team, or she first came through the interview process? Well, 100% of the time, everybody, whether it's a frontline supervisor or a CEO talking about their board members, 100% of the time, they have about 1,000 things they would have done differently now that they know Betty Sue.
Yeah.
And so I asked them to go back to Betty Sue and say, Betty Sue, I'm so sorry that you haven't been more successful in this role as a board member or as a C-level executive or as a, on the production floor in our manufacturing outfit. I'm so sorry that you haven't been more successful. I can see in hindsight that I should have done this, I should have done that, and I should have been meeting with you more regularly. I should have given you more clear expectations that were measurable and specific to you and your role. And I should have helped you figure out a way to report those to me and to the rest of the team, either daily or weekly. And I should have been meeting with you. I mean, it's usually those three things, some variation on those three things, even at the board level. I should have been meeting with you more frequently to make sure that you were in alignment with the rest of the board members. And I want to take full responsibility for that, Betty Sue. And I want to do whatever it takes to regain your trust and help you be set up for success. Let's put our heads together and figure out how you can be really successful in this role. And can we meet at 2 o'clock this afternoon or 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon? So you're not letting Betty Sue off the hook. You're not saying, oh, go ahead, continue to fester out there and languish and collect a paycheck. You're going to engage her more effectively by sitting down with her one-on-one with a whiteboard and talking about what are those metrics? How can she be successful in this environment? And then that safety, but by you taking responsibility instead of you saying you idiot, but now Betty Sue has some safety to say, well, to tell you the truth, I really need training in this new equipment. I feel like I never got fully trained, or I feel like I need a resource, or I feel like if we could just move this one field on my screen from this screen to that screen. I mean, the frontline people know what they need, and the executives know what they need, and everybody in between knows what they need. So when you take responsibility, it gives them permission to say, well, to tell you the truth, I should have come to you because I knew I had these needs and I wasn't getting them met and I wasn't being productive. So now you have some workability. You can, work together. And then the key to that is a few hours after that first initial conversation, that's like 2 o'clock this afternoon meeting, just a few hours, 90 minutes, 2 hours, 3 hours, depending on what time it is, to follow up with Betty Sue. Say, Betty Sue, now that you've had a chance to think about this, did you have any new insights or any new ideas or any concerns that, or any obstacles that I'm going to need to help, remove for you? Or what are your concerns about this? Do you think that you can do this? And so now Betty Sue knows that you're serious. It wasn't just a one-time meeting and then you're going to let her go back and languish. So then what happens is, what's needed is then you follow up the next day. Well, let's meet tomorrow at 10 o'clock. And then let's meet the following day at 4 p.m. So you meet with her every 2 or 3 days, every day for 2 or 3 days. And then you meet with her every week or so for a month or so. And then you can get into some other rhythm like bi-weekly meetings or something. But the reporting has to be, before you can let go of the accelerator, holding the pressure, you have to see the metrics. The metrics have to improve, and they have to be reported to you in a way that are meaningful. Can't just be a little post-it note.
Okay.
But once you see that, then you can get into a rhythm.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yes. You're with those frequent meetings, you're helping to set the tempo and as you said,
And the expectation.
Right,
Set the
helping them
expectation.
understand this is real. I'm serious about this, and we're going to we're going to allocate time to get this done.
Yes.
Okay.
Even if you're the chairman of the board and you're dealing with a board member, it's such a good use of your time. And 100% of the time, the clients will say to me, "Oh, I can't micromanage," and I'll say, "Well, of course you don't want to micromanage, but you just have to do this for a week, or maybe sometimes less than a week." People will either step up or they'll have a wonderful job opportunity someplace else.
And then, Katharine, when you're coming in for the first time to a company, there's a reason why they've reached out to you in the first place, or there's a reason why they want to have a conversation with you. Maybe they don't know exactly what's going on, but they know it isn't right.
Right.
What are some of the common things that you see as you come into a company for the first time?
Well, a lot of times it's a executive VP of sales. That person might be the person that's not performing, or the sales force. Maybe that person knows how to perform, but they don't have the right people in their sales force. So we always look at revenue quickly, because that's the thing that's going to, determine, are we going to be successful or not? Can we turn around the revenue and generate a lot more? And so I have a tool. It's the Tailored Protocols Core Values Index. And it's based on pattern matching algorithms. It's highly accurate. And it tells me not only what people's strengths are, but their potential growth opportunities. And it may explain in black and white why I should never have been a CPA. And so I can give that to the leader in the complimentary confidential consultation, so that he or she can see, or I can give it to, if they want to engage me for a small engagement, I can give it to all the executives, and then come in for like 45 minutes on Zoom or face-to-face for a just a debrief. Oh, and then it becomes so apparent. Oh, of course, Joe is a high innovator. That's why he never brings things to conclusion. He's always innovating. He can't stop innovating. He's got to get a little bit more data, a little bit more experiments. Or we can see why Harry's not successful, because he's focused on tasks. He's deciding and doing 1,000 times a day, but he's never his actions are never in accordance with the strategic plan or the sales plan. So he's going off plan because he's just in reactionary mode.
Yeah, and so you're able to identify the person who's task oriented, or the innovator,
or the people person like me.
Yeah.
Or the data person like most CPAs and attorneys.
So you've got some kind of an assessment tool, or that surfaces and identifies what kind of person that is.
Yes. And in my case, and in many people's cases, it also shows the growth opportunities. Okay. So I should have been bringing more of that decide and do to my career, instead of being so accommodating with my clients. And that's how they got my attention. So they pointed that out to me in a 30-minute call after I took it just takes 8 to 10 minutes to take it. It's a real simple test, not complicated, but gives us a 15 to 17 page report with some graphs that are real easy to understand. I don't, in the complimentary confidential consultation, if they didn't take it, I can say, well, go ahead and take it now, and I'll get the results and we can look at them on the screen together. It doesn't take any kind of prep work. And it's amazing. And it tells us not only what the strengths are, but what the potential growth opportunities are.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And it tells us under stress, they're going to go to this.
Okay.
And sure enough, under stress, they did go there. Huh. So I've used it with thousands of people. It's really valuable. So did that answer? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, that did answer the question. Thank you. So does that change? Does that dynamic change at all when there are family members in the business?
Yes, of course, of course. And even if they're not blood relatives, I find with these founders, their employees become like family.
Yeah.
So there's always something that's, oh, it's so sensitive. It's so sensitive. Of course it's sensitive, but we still can't grow the company, and we can't double or triple the shareholder value if that person is left to language. And the beauty of this test is when it tells me what their strengths are, I can help move them down the hall or across the hall, and they become an A player. Everybody can be an A player if we get them in a role that's in alignment with their strengths. Like me as a CPA, not a good idea. But now my work doesn't feel like work because I'm a people person. I love engaging people. I love hearing their stories. And I can, because I went to work when I was just a little kid in my dad's CPA firm, and I was kind of codependent with him. They can just rant and rave, 5, 10, 15 minutes, and that doesn't bother me at all. I don't take it personally. I'm like, oh, just having a bad day, but I can help turn that around. So
Sounds like you got some valuable coaching from working your dad's
exactly. And I also saw about these family-owned businesses, and of course his clients in Vicksburg, Mississippi, they were mostly family-owned businesses. 2 brothers-in-law, had a medical practice or an auto parts store with every member of the family working in there.
Yeah. So I can see how, the whole people dynamic, often in companies, the measuring stick is, increasing revenues, growing profits, cutting costs, something more quantifiable like that.
Yes.
How do you quantify if Betty Sue feels great and she's an A player because she just, how do you really quantify that?
So Betty Sue's perception might not be reality. She feels like she is an A player. She comes to work, she's eager, she takes ownership and initiative, but it's just the bottom line is not there. The productivity or the quality of the work or the timeliness of the work. So we don't want to pick on Betty Sue. We don't want to make her be the only person who has to take on special projects. We'll look at 2 or 3 people that are also in positions to improve, and we'll give them 2 or 3 special projects, not all the same day, but give them one, see how well they do that. If they get some traction on that one, give them another one, and then let Betty Sue decide, is she going to step up? Mm-hmm. Because it's all so sensitive, and it's all because people are treating their employees as if they're family. And so they know way too much personal information. Oh, his mother's dying, or his wife is sick.
Right.
And so, but if we just bring it back to, well, what are the needs of the business? And if we were going to grow this company, what would be the drivers of that growth? Mm-hmm. And what impact does he have on those drivers? How can he pull the levers more effectively?
Yeah. And so do you then also, Katharine, get involved in the succession planning? The mm-hmm. CEO is going to retire in 3 years, and mm-hmm. they want to make sure that the new person is fully ramped up, who's already identified in the company. Do you do you help in that transition?
Yes, often.
Do you help with that?
Often. Well, I start by interviewing the founder about what were their, I call the critical success factors. What made this individual, him or her, be successful and grow this company to this size? Right. I want to really dig deep and identify all of those factors. Was it a focus on customer service, or was it a focus on quality, or was it focused on community, being involved in the community and contributing to the community? It could be all of those. And was it, this great love for their employees? And so what were those factors? And then who else in the company is replicating those? And if no one is, well, let's kind of codify those. Let's, make them be part of the onboarding for new hires. Let's make them be part of the training or the conversations with the established next generation leaders. And then I would do my strengths assessment on everybody too, because like I said, no one person is going to be able to fill that founder's role completely. It's just impossible. But if we can build a management team of 5 or 6 people, and this guy has part of it and that guy has another piece of it, then and then the key is then building the alignment with that team so that they have a commitment to a shared vision and a commitment to each other's individual success. They have to have both. So they have to have each other's back.
Okay.
And sometimes that takes some time because people have lost trust in each other, or they've had some conflict in the past. So guess what? We have to go through the conflict, dissolving that conflict process. But again, that could take, 45-minute conversation and then a 15-minute conversation where they go out and dissolve it. But then staying and building the structure. When people are not successful, it's either because they don't have a commitment, they don't have the skill, or they don't have the structure. And I find 99.9% of the time is that they don't have the structure. Well, how often are you meeting with Bob?
Mm.
What does that agenda for those meetings with Bob look like?
Wow. Yeah, and the structure sounds like it might be one of the easier things to.
Of course, and it's not personal. We're not saying, we know your wife is, got cancer and she's going through a lot and the whole family's, really traumatized by this. We're not talking about any of that. We're just saying we noticed that productivity's dipped. We're wondering if you have any ideas about how we could get it back up.
Yeah. And so when you talk about structure, Katharine, are you thinking of things like regular meetings or regular feedback? What
Both.
describe what that structure looks like, please.
Well, it's different in every organization, but it's key. The key thing is the rhythm of the meetings. We don't want to be like a big Fortune 500 company that has meetings to plan other meetings and to report on other meetings. We want to have these meetings be productive. I have an ebook called the Respond Not React Playbook. Right. And if people look in the link below, I'll give them a link to go to my website and get it for free, as well as my published book. I can give you that in a PDF. And habit number 5, there's 9 simple, practical time management habits in the Respond Not React Playbook. And habit number 5 is to prepare for meetings to be more successful. And habit number 1 is to get to the meeting in advance. So even if you haven't had time already to think about the purpose of the meeting, you have time now. What's the purpose of the meeting? Who called this meeting? What role am I supposed to play? What's the outcome we're supposed to drive to? And then when everybody gets in the meeting, you can, on Zoom, you can just say, hey, would it be okay if I took a minute to tell you what I think the purpose of this meeting is? And then that's going to free people up. They're like, well, I'm not even the subject matter expert. Let me go back to my work and I'm going to ask, Bob to sign on because he's the subject matter expert in this area, if that's the purpose of the meeting. So it starts to free up people's calendars. It starts to make the quality of the meeting so much exponentially more productive. So the meeting rhythm is critical, and having a well thought out agenda, and then the expectations by person. Execution occurs at the individual level, even though we love work. We want people to work in team environments because 3 heads are better than 1, but we want to be able to help people be successful at the individual level, know what the expectations are, what the metrics are they're going to be measured against, what the timeframes are, and how is that going to be reported either by them or by the system.
Okay.
And then
that's the structure that you're helping to create within the organization.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's not complicated. It's not rocket science, but it is highly nuanced. That's why I'll never work myself out of a job, because it's so nuanced. Because one, they love these people like family members, or they are family members. And then everybody's different. We're not dealing with robots. Everybody's motivated by different things. Everybody wants different things for themselves, their families, their career. So it's highly nuanced. So it does really, you can really benefit from having a strategic thinking partner. That's the role that I play, is to think through every little nuance through the process.
Yeah. It sounds like you're walking in advance of the companies you're working with. You're walking through that in your mind. Who's going to be part of that, when you're going to introduce things and engage people.
Yes. Yes.
It also sounds like the whole outcome, the whole goal, is to help that company achieve whatever that goal is that they're trying to achieve.
Right. Yeah, and it's not for me to say what the goal is. The founder or the leadership team gets to say what the goals are, but I can help speed up those goals and make sure those goals are really robust and that they're achieved in with a lot of velocity in a shorter time frame.
Yeah. And the companies you're working with, are they mostly one office, one facility, or multiple offices across multiple locations?
Well, I've done everything. I've worked with the Fortune 500. I worked all through different kinds of healthcare. But where I've been able to affect the most change is in a closely held company, even if it has multiple locations, 25 locations around the state or 50 locations around the country.
Okay.
I can, as long as I can get to that leadership team level and introduce them to some new and different approaches, we can get that shareholder growth of 2 to 3x easily.
So what would you say is the biggest success story from your work with different companies? What one or two things really just stand out from your experience working with the client company?
Well, not only is it, did they increase the shareholder value, but their quality of life increased. They took more vacations. They weren't wearing 15 hats in the company, and so they were able to be away from the company. And then even when they were working, they had the time to work on the business, not just in the business.
Okay.
By wearing all those different hats, they had time to think strategically and to take more strategic action. So yeah, I would say one of my biggest successes was a company that was the founder had a strong number two, and he felt like the founder was really burned out. He felt like he could take a sabbatical, so he did. And when he came back, they were near bankruptcy.
Oh no.
The number two was, and we turned that around, and I don't know, 12 to 18 months, we got them up to 1.25 million revenue, and then it just went on from there. They've huge company now, and everybody was able to work less hours and prevent that burnout.
So that owner who took that sabbatical, if he could kind of rewind a bit, if he had brought you in before he took the sabbatical,
yes,
you've been able to help him or her get to where he could
get the structure in place so he could, so he could take the sabbatical and trust that the firm was going to continue to grow. But he just left it all in the hands of one person who was also near burnout too. They'd both been working so hard. And he said to me, I thought we were going to have to replace our whole team, but now I see it's just simply us, me and my junior partner, just simply communicating our expectations more effectively. Mm-hmm. And his bookkeeper self-selected out the same day that he had a conversation about he needed those financial statements in a more timely manner, and he needed them in a more accurate and complete manner. She had a wonderful job opportunity the same day.
What a coincidence.
But all the other professionals, they were able to retain them and attract more. I mean, they went from like 12 employees probably to 25 employees, and they're in Alaska, so there's not a lot of employees out there. But they became like the employer of choice because people were learning, they were developing professionally, they were working on exciting intellectual opportunities.
So that sounds great. So a question for you. I'm thinking of another business owner I spoke with recently who recently became an absentee owner of the company.
Good for him or her.
My question, fear, concern, thought is the company going to be okay? Yeah. You've been at the helm for 30 years. You've been running the company, and yes, you've groomed them, let them take over different bits. But my concern and my thought of bringing this up to you is I'd probably feel a little more comfortable if somebody like you came in and made sure there were some metrics, maybe some structure, some
financial metrics, productivity metrics, employee engagement metrics. What's the turnover? If the turnover is now skyrocketing because the founder's absentee, well, that's a problem. Nobody else is building that culture of inclusion and respect like the founder was. So I would want to do like an audit of what their metrics were, and how often is that absentee owner looking at those metrics. He doesn't, or she doesn't have, they don't look at them daily or weekly, but probably bi-weekly to start. We don't want things to get too far off track. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have not ever done that. I did a lot of auditing as a CPA. I've not done that, an audit of the metrics, but that's the quick and dirtiest way. I could do that by email, send me whatever management reports you have.
Yeah. So it sounds like if somebody's goal, I hear this from business owners, they've got a good business, it's working, it's running. They don't have to spend a lot of time running that anymore because they've got the right people in place.
Exactly.
And they've got this kind of fork in the road. Do I just sell it and, get one chunk of money and I'm done?
Right.
It's going so well, they don't really want to sell it.
No, of course not.
They want to go travel. They want to go enjoy the grandkids and all those things that
of course
away from work. So
right.
it sounds like you'd be able to help that person set up a structure and
a management reporting system. Right. And there's very affordable dashboards, electronic dashboards that are cloud-based, like $30 a person. The one I recommend is the Metronome, but there's dozens of them out there. And so, you just have your executive team, you all use that same system, feeding in their data. And a lot of times it can be done electronically. And then the business owner can be in Italy or Spain or Africa, go online and, and when they have a break and look at their dashboard, and then they'll know, oh, this key performance indicator is down. I better make sure I'm available during my company's work hours so I can get, somebody on the phone about this.
Yeah. So it sounds like that can help them have that peace of mind that when they taking that dream vacation or sabbatical,
right,
that things at home are still good.
Right. Because why walk away from, a cash cow if your company is producing revenue and your family are relying on that revenue? Why walk away from it? And I have one family business now as a client. The fourth generation is not interested in being involved in the business, and how the first and third generations have made their money was by working as executives in the business, and they took big salaries and bonuses. And so we're, it's complicated, but we're grooming the management team to do that so that that fourth generation can be absentee owners.
So I did have a conversation recently, Catherine, with a business owner who he is second generation running the company, and he is wondering if his adult kids will be able to step up and run it. And he says, I'm sure that my questions and concerns are no different than my father's when I took over the business.
Right, of course.
So with him thinking of transitioning to that third generation, how might you help determine if that can work or that it is possible?
Oh, it's so simple. This is like a 30-day engagement. So
simple for you.
So I would, of course, go back to interviewing the founder, because he was key. I mean, it was his vision or her vision. It was their, high energy level, that engaged all these customers and all these employees. So I go back to them, try to identify the critical success factors. I'd give him or her my strengths assessment, and then I give it to the second generation and all the third generation members. And then we could just ask them. I could ask them confidentially, do you want to come into this business or not? It is no harm, no foul. Just tell us the truth. And if you don't know, well, why don't you, let's think about based on your strengths, let's think about what might be a good role. See if there's a way for you to plug in on an interim basis or a fractional basis or a 90-day basis to see if you like the work. And if you, let's just run a series of experiments to see who would be well suited and who would be able to fill, a need, and give them the support and the structure so they can be successful.
And so in that assessment of that third generation, somebody who wants it and really is anxious to take over dad's company, yet they lack skills or lack of the critical factors. You mentioned the critical success factors. Either they need to acquire those or they are not the right person.
Right. Yeah. And it's not so much as acquiring them as adopting them. Yes, I'm willing to use these same approaches. My grandfather sat on the board of, APS or Pinnacle West or, one of the big banks here. And so I'm willing to get involved in the community at that same level. or he was a big donor. There's a YMCA name for my family because they were, you know, he and my grandmother were such big donors, big philanthropists. Whatever made those people successful or critical, we can't just throw that away. And that's the founder's legacy. And I have found that a founder, they might not be motivated by the money. They might not be motivated by their, you know, having their family take over, but they are motivated every time by their legacy. They want that company to retain the name and stay local and have the decisions be made locally. Their legacy is a prime motivator for them. So that, and those critical success factors that is their legacy. So we have to get people to adopt those. And if they're not, then there's not going to be, you know, it's probably either there's going to be a big bump in the road, big pivot, or something else. I mean, sometimes the industry could be going out of business, and so those success factors are not relevant anymore. But most often I find that there's some relevance.
Okay. Oh, that's helpful. Thank you.
Sure, of course.
Other things, Katharine, that we haven't talked about as you think about your work and the different conversations you've had with clients along the way?
Well, I referenced my ebook. It's called the Respond Not Act Playbook. So I help leaders get out of what I call maniac mode. When you're wearing 15 hats in your business, you're the facilitator of the strategic planning process, you're the CEO and the COO, and you have a controller but no CFO. So you know, 2 or 3 times a month you put your hat on about the CFO role. And also you're the inventor of the product that you sell. So all your technical people come to you for guidance about, you know, when they're going to upgrade the systems and processes and the tweak all that. So you're wearing so many hats that you're working nights, you're working weekends, you're not taking care of yourself, and you're not able to work on the business. You're so busy working in the business. So you're not bringing a strategic mindset. So I often have to start with that to just help people get out of maniac mode. And I have one exercise that takes 10 minutes. We can do it together, and that'll start to create some white space on their calendar. And then I have 3 of the 9 habits, or the last 3 are different kinds of strategic think time. Okay, so you carved out 20 minutes here, or you got to the meeting 20 minutes early. Here's what you should be thinking about in that 20 minutes. And it's critical to have a notebook and bring that notebook with you and write it down. You do not get credit for taking your strategic think time if you're just looking at the clouds and thinking. It's got to be written down either on a device, you know, you can open up the notes section on your phone, or you can have a notebook, but it's got to be written down, because it's when we see it in black and white that we say, I better bring, you know, Aaron into this discussion because he's the subject matter expert about what I'm thinking here today. Or I better bring my team in on what I'm thinking here, because they're going to all have a different perspective. Like for me, I'm a high innovator after being a people person. And so I tell people I can't tell an idea from a good idea. I think they're all good ideas. And so I write them down, and my team that supports me at the Halpin Companies, they know to say to me when I call them with an idea, they say, Katharine, gosh, you want to sleep on that? Because they know I'm going to take my strategic think time tomorrow morning, and I'm going to see a broader perspective about my brilliant idea. It might not be so brilliant, might not have any ROI. So we have to write it down somewhere. We have to either keyboard it or write it in a notebook. Okay. So
and that's in your ebook, you said?
Yes, the Respond Not React playbook. And we'll put the link below so that people can get it for free. It's available. Both of my books are available on Amazon, but you can get the PDF for free. Okay. And let me say one thing about my other book, Alignment for Success. I have a former client who I was introduced to by his wife. His wife was my client. And when my book came out, I had given her a copy of the book. And she had taken home and put it on the coffee table. And he picked it up and read it one weekend. It's just like 99 pages. And then he bought 8 copies because he was in a professional services firm with 7 other people. And they facilitated without me. He did eventually hire me later, but they facilitated what they called a business divorce. just by reading, all of them reading that book and seeing that 5 of them had a shared vision for this, and 2 of others had a shared vision for that. Let's go our separate ways. Wish you the best of luck. And we'll go with our vision. Y'all go with your vision. So that's the power of that book. It's so amazing. It's just a little quick read, but people facilitated pretty extraordinary things. I had a employee in healthcare, a client in healthcare. When it came out, I called her about a different topic. I said, I want to get some feedback about my book. Have you read it? She said, oh yeah, I have it right here on my desk. So we talked about the other topic for 10 or 15 minutes. And I said, now really, seriously, I want to get some feedback. She said, I already gave you feedback. It's right here on my desk. I use it as a reference manual. She had 15,000 employees and she was a VP of HR.
Wow.
So in big healthcare. So it's a really great little book. So yeah, look for the link below and you can.
Yeah, we'll make sure to get that link below there so people can take a look at that.
Yes, I'll send it.
Excellent. Well, yeah, we've talked about a lot, and it seems like a real variety of things that we've talked about. And it's, I guess, if I were going to condense down the conversation, just from you today, you talked about effectively engage people in conversation, getting a shared vision, getting commitment. You said that, goals really happen at the individual level, the tasks, the executions at the individual level, even though there are teams working on things, of course. And really, I like what you said as well. You said that everyone, let me see what you said here. You said everybody can be an A player.
Right.
And I imagine that maybe they're an A player, maybe the company they're with right now is not where they can be.
Exactly. And we have to free up their future, help them see that they can be an A player if they were building widgets of this nature, not of our nature. So yeah, it's so simple to help people get that kind of clarity about what their strengths are, and then have a serious conversation about, do you think this is the best fit? Or don't even have that serious conversation, just give them a bunch of special projects and let them see for themselves. Ooh, I don't like doing this. I'm never going to be successful at this.
Yeah. So Katharine, can you describe, when is the right time to have a conversation with you?
Yesterday. Yesterday is always the right time. People wait too long. They often tell me, business owners will tell me, it's just, we're going to definitely bring you in, Katharine, but it's just not the right time. Well, what that tells me is that they are in maniac mode, and that's why it's not the right time.
So I guess more from a situational perspective, is it when there's a transition?
Yes.
Is it when they're wearing the 15 too many hats and they're in maniac mode?
Yes. And the company's plateaued. They're not able to grow it anymore. They've maxed out based on their tools and their toolbox, or they are serious about doing a transaction either with their employees or their family members, or the private equity companies. And they want to prepare for that. They want to be strategic. They don't want to leave any money on the table. People should not leave money on the table. And they should sell at a premium, I believe. And I think that's very possible, but the sooner the better.
Yeah. And it sounds like they really need to, as you said, the sooner the better, talk with you. And I was thinking more from a, what's the situation happening in that company now where they've got some kind of a situation where, you really should call Katharine.
Right. Well, it could be if they're ranting and raving about their people. That's a key indicator that, this is all very fixable. Don't be ranting and raving about your own people that you've hired. Let's get this turned around. So if they're ranting and raving about their people, or they've plateaued, or they do think that they have the potential to be an absentee owner and keep this thing going another 20, 30, 40, 50 years with new generations, or if they do want to sell to private equity, all of that, we can increase the multiple for a sale exponentially by having that really top-notch, well-oiled machine of an executive leadership team that's going to be willing to make the transition. And then working with people like you, we can develop compensation structures so that they are motivated, highly motivated to stay and perform at that level.
Right. Yeah. And you mentioned structure as well, helping to put some structure around people so they don't languish.
Oh, yes. We don't want people to languish for a day, much less 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 15 years. And I've seen it. Oh, that's just Bob. That's how we have to do this big workaround because that's just how Bob is. No, let's get Bob with the program. Yeah. And when I go and meet with Bob, I can 99.999% of the time I could get Bob to open up and say why he's in such a bad mood, why he's so difficult to work with. And I fall in love with him because I love everybody, even Bob. And so I'll come back to the management team and I'll say, oh, Bob's such a great guy. And if we could just give him more of this and less of this, I think he'd be a lot easier to work with. And he has so much institutional knowledge. We don't want to lose Bob.
Yeah. And that's a good point that you just touched on right there, that, you don't want to lose Bob. And with the job market as tight as it is, employers want to hold on to their
good ones, the people that have the institutional knowledge for sure. But we need them to be productive and be able to work with other people.
Right, exactly. Yeah, we had an event recently where one of the takeaways that came out of that I forget who said it, one of the investment bankers said it, that companies are being acquired sometimes now just to get the employees.
Yeah.
They don't really need the other stuff employees are come by.
Right.
If they can buy a company that has good employees, that certainly helps the reasoning, the rationale behind acquiring that company.
Yes, of course. But you have to sustain that culture. You have to be sure that you can retain those employees after you acquire their company. Don't pay a lot of money for the company and then have them all depart in the first 6 months because they see you're not providing the same work environment and culture that the former leaders were.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So, Katharine, if somebody is watching this and wants to talk with you, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Well, I like text. I think everybody does business with text now. So my mobile number is 602-617-3913, 602-617-3913.
Okay.
And if they mention your name, I'm happy to give them that complimentary confidential consultation by telephone, give them some real meaningful action steps that they could take the same day to start to make changes so that they're not ranting and raving or whining and complaining. Great. Or where they start to see if they can craft a vision. Oh my gosh, I could be an absentee owner.
Yeah, I can see some light bulbs going off from a conversation with you that they might have.
Right, and they'll leave that conversation with actionable, 2 or 3 actionable steps that they can take that same day to, get this going.
Wow, fantastic. Well, I've taken a lot of notes here, Katharine. Thank you so much for helping.
Thank you.
And you said that ebook is Respond, Not React Playbook?
Yes. And then my other book is the Alignment for Success, Bringing Out the Best in Your self, your teams, and your company. It's about starting with self-leadership. Okay. It's just 5 short chapters. It's a small book.
Wow. Well, it sounds like sounds like a good book.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll put the link below on the YouTube page.
That'll be fantastic. Yes, we'll have the links on there. We'll have your number there. And again, that phone you said is 602-617-3913, correct?
That's correct. That's correct.
Great. Well, Katharine, thank you so much for this.
Thank you, Armando.
Just to hear you. I've known you for, 30 years or so, and known that your work here in the valley, in the Phoenix Valley, has such a good reputation. And
well, thank you.
How can you come into an environment and not be, as you said, you like people, you like everybody. I can because that comes across loud and clear. Just
Thanks. Thanks. The CEO of that healthcare company said to me one time, whenever I leave my meetings with you, I just feel better about myself. So, and I've had some clients that when our work was done, but the CEO wanted to keep me on retainer until they retired, until they walked out the door. So I had several of those situations where they just get used to having me, have these conversations regularly and focus on what's working and how they can build on that and celebrating the successes.
Wow, fantastic. Well, good, Katharine. Thanks so much for the time.
Thank you, Armando. So grateful.
We'll get this out there so people can call you if they have any questions for you.
Okay, that's a deal.
Perfect.
And we'll talk soon.
Yep.
Thank you. Bye.